Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we got some breaking news that just happened about an hour ago. Lou Lamoriello has been fired as general manager of my New York Islanders. Funny enough, I was just finishing up like when I got the news alert right when I finished my NHL award ballot video. That'll be coming out tomorrow. This obviously takes precedent considering the fact that I am an Islanders fan. And this is some pretty big news. This is not going to be, though, Lou Lamoriello bashing. I know it's been bad the last 2 to 3 years. People are dragging him on social media. I'm kind of a Lou defender when looking at the overall tenure of Lou Lamoriello. There were definitely a lot of positives, but of late it had gotten so bad and so just directionless to a degree that he definitely had to go. So we're going to start with first kind of appreciating what he did and then just like what completely went wrong the last 3 years, and then what I want to see from the Islanders, from the next general manager, and what they should do going forward. So yeah, up first, you got to realize the position that Lou Lamoriello was in, or the position the New York Islanders were in when Lou Lamoriello took over. It was the spring of 2018. They were coming off an 80-point season, and John Tavares leaves. Like July 2nd, 2018 was probably the lowest I had ever felt as a New York Islanders fan, arguably as a sports fan probably. And I'm a Jets, Mets, and Hornets fan as well. I know pain. But yeah, our franchise superstar had left the team, and we already were mid as hell the following year. But Lou Lamoriello comes in, he hires Barry Trotz, makes some minor tweaks, and this team wins a playoff round the following year. They sweep the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then the following 2 years, in part because Lou Lamoriello, big deadline moves like J.G. Pageau and Kyle Palmieri, those deadline deals, giving up a first-round pick, but are actually working out to some success in the playoffs. And we have a 3-year stretch where we win 5 playoff series. Talking about those prior teams, that's the best 3-year run that I've ever been on as a sports fan. Because again, Jets, when I was 9 and 10, they made the AFC Championship game. Mets 2015. Besides that, not much. Hornets, like literally nothing. So yeah, that 3-year run is the best sports run of my life. It's the second best Islanders run outside of the dynasty. Really not up for debate. But there were some mistakes in that for sure. The Devon Toews trade gave up 2 second-round picks instead of finding a way to make the salary cap work because, again, they only, I think in Colorado, what did he sign for? Like a 2 to 3 year deal at $3.5-4 million. It was ridiculous. And it wasn't even like it was a completely out of nowhere breakout by Devon Toews. He wasn't playing big minutes in the 2019 and 2020 season, but he was an analytical darling. And then he goes, plays with Kim McCarr and reaches a top 10 defenseman in the NHL status. Like the writing was on the wall. That was just brutal. That was brutal that he was not able to move around salary cap. So does that. Yeah, the Pageau first-round pick ended up becoming Ridley Gregg. But I'm not going to hate those kind of trades just because those guys were part of the team that made conference finalists. What happened at the 2022 draft is where things kind of went soft. Went south. They missed the playoffs by a decent amount in 2020. I think almost like 20 points, or 2022. And he decides to give up the 13th overall pick for Romanov. Thankfully, Romanov was only 21, 22 years old, but it just didn't make sense considering we probably should have entered some kind of heavy retool, considering guys were starting to get up there in age. But he kind of doubled down, Romanov, and it ended up being the pick that turned into Frank Nazar. I would much rather have Frank Nazar right now for the New York Islanders. Then during that 2022-2023 season, he triples down, goes and gets Bo Horvat, trades a first-round pick that turned out to be Axel Sandin Palika, 17th overall, as well as Atu Ratu, who was very good this year in the AHL for the Vancouver Canucks. Hasn't quite made an impact at the NHL level, but still only 21 or 22 years old. So yeah, he goes aggressive, gets Bo Horvat, and I love Bo Horvat. But the amount that we gave up and the players that it became on top of the contract that we gave him, which does look better now considering the cap jumps, we weren't a Bo Horvat away from actually contending. At the moment, we were like 4 points back at the playoffs. It was maddening. That's where I fully like hopped off the Lou train. I was like, what is this guy doing? So you look at it, he doubled down on this core in the 2022 offseason at the 2023 deadline, got Romanov, got Horvat. Instead, those picks ended up becoming Atu Ratu, ASP, and Frank Nazar. He decided that we could potentially go on some run. He was still in love with the 2021 teams, and those teams were amazing. But those teams weren't even regular season wagons. They were just built for the playoffs. We were not some kind of fluky team, but he was still just holding on to that idea of what we were prior when in 2023, 2024, those guys were 3 to 4 years older. They were no longer the players that they once were. And he just continued to dig his heels down. We make the playoffs in 2023, lose in 6 games. 2024, it wasn't remotely close. We lose in 5 games. And this year, thankfully, they were just so bad that he had to sell at the deadline when looking at the fact that we were, like 4 or 5 points back at the playoff spot. Thankfully, he does trade Brock Nelson. I did not expect that to happen. And I got to fully respect him for doing that, considering the fact that he was fighting for his job potentially. He definitely could have doubled down and said, I'm going to trade my 2025 first round pick, or I'm going to trade Cole Iserman to try to make the playoffs. So I can appreciate it from that angle. But yeah, he just spent so many assets for this team to be aggressively average. You look at his drafting. Yes, he got Dobson, 12th overall, but he also took Wallstrom in that, so it basically canceled out each other to make it a pretty lackluster draft, as well as Holmstrom, solid at 25th or 24th overall in 2019. But outside of that, he didn't have a lot of first-round picks, but he found nothing outside of the first round. The Islanders had, for the Lou Lamoriello tenure, the least amount of games played outside of the first round. The only guys that played any serious games were Isaiah George this season and Sam Bolduc, who only played like half a season. So his drafting, his developing, not nearly good enough. You look at the contracts that he gave out towards the end of his tenure, the Mayfield and Engvall deals, 7-year deals. I know it's only $3 million and $3.5 million, but those are not movable at this point, considering they are so bad. Pelech, Polak, those deals, it's kind of hindsight to shit on them because they were so elite when they were signed, but still 8-year deals that are going to carry into 2030. Here's the full cap sheet, by the way. Yeah, just way too much term to some of these guys that we're going to be feeling the effects of into the 2030s. So yeah, as much as I do appreciate the last 12 months, it's basically like the first 3 years, great. 2022, 2023, and then the 2024 end of the season, brutal. We have the worst future in the NHL without a doubt. Thankfully, selects Cole Iserman in the 2024 draft, sells at the deadline, so it's a little bit up. We are in a far better situation than we were May 1st, 2024. When looking at, we lost the Carolina Hurricanes in 5 games. We had Matthew Maggio or William Dufour as our best prospect in the system. Now we have Richie and Iserman, as well as a high pick coming this year that is most likely going to be 10th overall. So it's been a roller coaster. It's literally been a roller coaster, but it's time. It's definitely time to move on from Lou Lamoriello, considering his long-term vision, or he never really had a long-term vision, if that makes sense. He just continued to bury his head into mid until I assume ownership probably came to him as well and said that you got to sell at this deadline. You got to think about the future. You're probably going to be on your way out, but I need to thank Lou Lamoriello for all that he gave me as a hockey fan those first 3 years, and even making the playoffs in prior years. Like the Islanders, you look at their franchise history. We went, 25 years without a playoff round win? Like, it was dark. The Milbury years, like, Lou Lamoriello, to compare the two is absolutely ridiculous. Lou Lamoriello's leaps and bounds better than that. But in terms of where I think the Islanders should go from here, I don't expect some kind of like nuclear rebuild. I just like the financials. The attendance was already down a decent amount this season. I expect a heavy retool. I want them to bring in some kind of young forward-thinking guy that does have a long-term vision. I think next year we need to be kind of bad. I'm not talking like sub 70 points, absolutely blow it up, but we need to be in the race for a guy like Gavin McKenna, considering the fact that not even just McKenna, there's other guys like Rubeck, Bjork, Stenberg that look like high-end potential franchise pieces. So next year's draft, I know we probably said that last year about this year's draft, there's still 2 potential franchise pieces. But yeah, we need to be a 75 to 80 point team next year. During this summer, big summer, obviously, JGP has to be traded. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, 1 more year at $5 million. I think a team will happily take that on, maybe retain $1 million or $1.5 million, a third line center for him. That would be potentially net us like a second and a third round pick. I would look at moving Bo Horvat. I know that he is arguably like our best player, but when looking at the fact that he has 6 years left, he's 30 years old at $8.5 million, I think with the cap jumping again, someone would be willing to take that on. A contending team that has a 3 to 4 year window, or even like a Montreal Canadiens, I think makes a lot of sense in terms of their need for a second line center. So I would try to move off Bo Horvat, although I really like Bo Horvat. You try to recoup some assets from the time that you traded for him. I think that's definitely feasible. Noah Dobson, that's a tough decision for the general manager. If he still wants that 8-year deal at $8.5 million, I'd be willing to move off him for a 21, 22-year-old that is already at the NHL level in a pick. I personally would be willing to do that instead of giving him some 8-year, $8.5 million deal comparable to like a Moritz Seider or a Brock Faber. Barzal and Sorokin, I don't expect to get moved. They're kind of the cornerstone franchise pieces, faces of the franchise, and Sorokin's value is just a little bit too low to potentially move him, and we've seen plenty of goalies play elite into their mid-30s, so I expect those two to definitely stay. A lot of the guys, again, going back to the salary cap sheet, are not movable, like Ryan Polak. Pelech, I think you maybe want to look at that. He's still so elite defensively, but again, I don't think he's going to be contributing in 2 to 3 years where this team could maybe get back in the playoffs and be a competitive team. But yeah, when looking at it next season, I expect Richie to be at the NHL level, Yzerman stay in college. don't go to Bridgeport. Bridgeport is an absolute shit show. Hopefully they can turn it around now that Lou Lamoriello's son isn't running it. But yeah, for my New York Islanders, I'm oddly a little bit optimistic. At least there's going to be a guy brought in. And clearly they're not firing Lou and then bringing in a guy that's going to be like, we're trading all our picks and we're going all out. Like, clearly they're thinking about the future at least. And you tell me the future core is going to be Richie, Yzerman, a top 10 pick this season, a top 7 pick next year if we not suck, but we're kind of a below average team. That seems like a decent core. Again, they're going to have to, one of those guys are going to have to turn into a franchise level guy. But there's at least hope in terms of a heavy retool or rebuild now. Moving off Lou Lamoriello really inspires hope for this franchise. They're in a far better spot this year compared to 12 months ago where they were completely directionalist and had no high-end prospects. So yeah, I'm oddly optimistic just because the last 4 seasons have been so mediocre. Yes, they made the playoffs the prior 2 years, but they weren't a threat to win the Stanley Cup. So I'm excited. I'll probably do videos like breaking down like who potentially could be the Islanders' next general manager, but I just needed to get this off about Lou Lamoriello. A complicated, complex tenure that I think overall is definitely a net positive. He's definitely in the green overall with his moves, and what he's done in the last 12 months has made it so it's hopefully not like a New Jersey Devils where they had to rebuild for a decade until they made the playoffs again. I think that there are some solid pieces. Richie can be a low-end number 1 center. Yzerman can be a potential 35-goal, 40-goal guy, and he didn't trade his first-round pick this year. But yeah, it's going to take a good forward-thinking general manager that can draft and trade and maybe utilize some offer sheets to get younger. Actually, no. If it's your second-round pick offer sheet, don't be giving up your first-round pick potentially next year. But get creative, get excited. Lou Lamoriello's gone. Bring in some 45-year-old hotshot that knows what he's doing, a little bit more analytically focused. And yeah, I'm excited for the New York Islanders. And I have not said that since, I don't even know when, 2021 offseason, maybe? Because 2022 was so bad, 2023, they were not really that good. Yeah, it's been a long tenure, but thank you, Lou. Your time has come, but we appreciate what you did, and we are looking to the future. Let's go Islanders. See you in the next one. Peace.